Thank you all for joining us. And let me start with you, Dinesh. Uh, for business intelligence, it's only as good as your data. So, how do you get over the data quality issues?
Hey, good morning to all of you. And you got it right, Anisha, right? So data is like the oil for the business, right? There's a old saying. So without good data, there's a good saying that good data beats the best algorithm any day. So without good data, you will never be able to get good insights, or you will be not able to get any good algorithm working. So what we have seen in the industry is it's a pretty open secret that 80% of the time a data scientist spends on cleaning of data, right? So in that sense, when you want to do a BI or a AI/ML model, some of the things that people really do is first is there are missing values, there are blank spaces, right? From engineering aspect, a lot of stuff that are missing. And so what happens is when you have junk in data, you get junk analysis. So everyone knows this. And what we also do is one of the things that we have been doing is what we want to do is we want the business and the data scientists and the engineers to spend a lot of time on building models or drawing insights rather than spending time on like cleaning of the data, right? Which is a total waste. So from an industry perspective, now going into a lot of stuff from a BI perspective, why it gives us a lot of insights into the business efficiency. So there are a lot of BI tools which you can build or you can buy off the shelf. Uh, but essentially, what all of them will do is give you visibility of how your business is performing or the efficiencies or the waste in the process. So here, some of the standard stuff that people really used is a lot of package tools to clean data. Like so, we have a lot of commercial products like TIBCO, the IBMs, the Informaticas, right? And generally, these are very rule driven. So, for example, when the data scientist sees some anomaly in the data, so they kind of try to do a rule and they're trying to kind of massage the data, typically, right? So but if you look at what is happening here is this is like a hamster running on a wheel, right? So if you see a hamster, it keeps on running on a wheel, and the faster it turns, the wheel kind of rotates it well, right? So you are never able to catch up. So this is like a endless game where the data scientist is trying to draw in rules and trying to catch up with the nuances of data. So typically, in the last couple of years, the industry and what we have evolved is a lot of AI tech models to draw insights from data itself and correct data by itself, right? Because we understand that the traditional model of building in like a rule engine and massaging data is not going to catch pace and not ultimately going to be a good use of time for business benefits. So with this, what I would like to summarize is there are traditional products for drawing, kind of cleaning data. But as data explodes and we get a lot of different types of data, right? I can tell you for one, I can give you one good example of the kind of data situations that we have, right? For example, Walmart is the biggest customer for Kimberly Clark. We do about $2 billion of sales to them, and if you see as Walmart as a customer in our records, right? You can see, for example, there's a Walmart Inc. There's a Walmart stores. There'll be a W with large case. So this is just a typical example of a you know customer data which itself is inconsistent. And when you try to draw insights on such type of data, you will think there are three or four customer base for you, and your insights go wrong. So in this aspect, it's very important to have data, pristine data as much as possible. And the best way to do it is probably try to do it at source. Try to put a lot of cleaning at the source, or stop uh, the outliers coming in at the source. If you're able to do it, it's great. But there are challenges. So in getting it done at the input. So that's why I think increasingly the data scientists are building data models to self clean the data by themselves, so as to
Right.
accelerate the journey. So this is a quick insight of how data is important and how data scientists are kind of leveraging AI
Mhm.
to clean data itself on the fly.
All right. Rohit, want to come to you. Dinesh has told us how, we're using AI to clean the data. But could you give us examples of how machine learning or AI is supercharging performance and implementing innovative solutions to address complex business problems? Not just the first thing of, the sanitization of the data, but a lot more. Could you give us examples? Rohit, I would request you to please unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I start with some examples. First, I give you some means flavor of the ML, means how the internet companies are using it. Okay, to solve the purposes to make the user engagements more. Okay, and serving the right properties, right data, so that the user engagement and means lot of the. I can give you some examples based on the business, like how the OTTs are using, how the e-commerce businesses are using, right? So that some can enhance the screen time, some can enhance the user engagement, and some of them like can get more and more traffic on that. Okay, the BI tools have some limitations. Okay, because the hidden patterns or something it cannot identify, and for that this ML is giving more and more help in those areas. The examples are like in OTTs, the simple the recommendations, like if a song, suppose on the Gaana platform, if I'm taking the example, the user engagement can be improved by giving some personalization flavor on the entities which we are posing to them. So like one song and how the songs can be related to that one, those can be given to them so that the users can have more and more engagement. During travel time he can get more and more engagement without going for searching a song or just uh, switching to any particular song. Means the personalization flavor and the recommendation can be powered through the ML to engage them. On the e-commerce platform itself, you can see if someone is buying a product, how the exploration can be enhanced using the machine learning, so that he can means these are the examples of like market basket analysis or the collaborative filtering, those kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Okay, so then other things like on the BI, one more example I can give you for the fraud detection or something, right? So there you cannot just get all the features, the hidden features by using just BI. It will not tell you actually the patterns. Okay, because it has the dimension limitations, and
Mhm.
AIML can help drastically in those areas when the dimensions and the features are increasing. Okay, so
Right.
these are the few examples which I have given to you. Okay.
Mhm. Right. Mr. Sunil Kumar, Rohit has spoken about some of the examples where, the users looking for songs, they can get a lot of variety according to their past behavior on an app. Now, in your experience, what's the interplay from BI to AI when it comes to delivery schedule, order management in e-commerce, and even fraud management, Rohit spoke about?
Sure. So BI, we just want to understand how BI and AI interplay. First of all, we need to understand that BI, it doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you what was it and what it is right now. So in other words, it turns your noisy data into a coherent picture, but it's not generally designed to provide a clear prescription of what you should do next. That
So, Sunil, are you saying that BI is more like a post-mortem and it doesn't predict anything?
Yeah, so that's where I'm coming. So BI is the base for your predictive analytics and the AI that's coming to you in terms of prescriptions. For example, BI is a key for all the operational efficiencies that we have in the ecosystem. It allows people to track their key performance indicators in real time and then course correct if you're going wrong. And also, it also allows to identify a problem much faster based on how you want to use it real time or near real time. Uh, let's take an example of delivery or supply chain. It relies heavily on the interplay of BI and AI. What area, a number of orders, what partner, size of products, warehousing capabilities, manpower, urgency of delivery, whether we should now stop accepting orders online, for example, for big sales events like big billion days, etc. So I'll give you an example that within Flipkart, we have about 500 dashboards that runs from the top level management to the end user or the delivery boy who are using the whole BI system, and also have a predictive analytics or some future looking numbers saying that you're going to have these many deliveries in this area. So you'd rather ramp up your manpower, or we need to have more space. If a new sale is coming in, there's a whole lot of analysis from the previous year, seasonality, how the purchasing power has increased, all of those AI capabilities. Now, when that is all of that is shoved into the BI capabilities joined together, then you start to make decisions for each place, for each zone, for each person, etc. uh, the AI part is three things on top of BI. It's automation, the cognitive insights, and cognitive engagement. Cognitive engagement being the chatbots. Barring that, a whole lot of that is predictive analytics. Now, all of this data that I was talking about is also taken into the fraud preventions. Which IP am I using? Are many orders happening from the same place? Are the same cancellations happening from the same place? All of this data with all the ETLs and what Dinesh also talked about, when put in the right place, all of these generate a fraud prevention system where you can start taking decision that this could be a potential fraud, and let's stop, or let's do another level of check for this. Now, finally, I would also like to talk about how this AI and BI interplays is being pushed to sellers or even our consumers. The industry soon realized that just having this at the enterprise level in the industry, in the company itself, won't work out. So inherently, it has been directly pushed to our customers. For example, seller dashboards are example of inherent BI, even if the sellers are not capable or does not have a background on BI analytics, but they're still using it. The more sophisticated sellers are on the BI effectiveness, better is the marketplace on the AI effectiveness for prediction of the future. The inventory management, we've started to show people that this much is the inventory you should be managing for your effective number of orders. You should be expanding your area. What Flipkart is expecting, let's say 2x the order or 10x the orders in this big billion day. So you better be ready for that per category, per zone, per area. So this is how both sellers and the company manage the planning of the inventory as well as the fluid capital management. So yeah, BI keep coming in and out with AI capabilities, all interplaying together.
All right. So a lot of possibilities on how AI can enhance BI. Mr. Mathew, data visualization, dashboards theoretically make the information easier to understand. But is BI still seen as an IT function in most companies? Are senior executives trained in data administration applications? What is the point of having an asset if you're not going to maximize its value?
Right. So pretty interesting question. So I'll probably start with, just how this request comes in, right? So the request could just be a question from one of the executives or one of the leaders saying, hey, what is the category that is selling the most, right? And so the quick response to that is just to bring in, a Power BI or a Tableau dashboard, powered by a few Excels, and build that kind of a view to kind of demonstrate that, right? But then very soon that this kind of changes, right? It changes to some of what the panelists have already spoken about in terms of data accuracy, data lineage, data audits, and even some of the domain experts needing to certify, whether the data is right or wrong, right? Because it's at the end of the day, it's just how good the data is, right? So to answer the first part of your question as to whether it is an IT function, I've seen different combinations, but I would say the most effective thing is probably to have a strong partnership between the business and the IT functions, right? Now, to answer to your second part, Anisha, where you asked about, the role of chief executives or leaders, in a data administration role. Um, just imagine that you are running a small group or a company which has about 500 associates, let's say, right? And you're just trying to figure out what is the engagement level among all the associates, right? Now a seasoned leader would be able to see this and understand that that answer is not just in looking at the engagement scores, but it is about understanding the interplay between, let's say, learning data, training data, rewards, recognitions, and multiple other data domains, right? So my point of view is that there is a very key role that as leaders who are leading up some of these functions, they need to be heavily involved in definition of the problem, right? While that's hugely aspirational, I would say that would really help revolutionize the insights that can be drawn from the solution itself, right? Because what's going to happen is you create a visualization, and then there are multitude of teams or managers or groups of people who are going to interact with this and draw inferences from it, right? So that's my response. And I would say in future, I do see leaders becoming a lot more data savvy. And in fact, there are quite a few great examples that I've seen within Walmart, where people just pull out their phones or their mobile devices and interact to know exactly where some of the things are and some of the trends that are happening on the ground, right? So what's happening at stores, how much supply inventory is the store carrying, what are some of the problems that's happening on the ground and things like that, right? So I would say that's a future, but I would say just getting involved in the early stages is the way to start.
All right. Related to this, Dinesh, I'll come to you. Now, how do you democratize data and intelligence so that even non-technologists and businesses are able to derive information and knowledge without relying on IT folks? Now, Mr. Matthews has given us an example, but you also have to decide the rights that users will have on accessing data. How would how will you decide that? And how do you democratize it so that more people have access and hence they can fit the data into what they are looking at?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, right? The power of the data, actually, I can allude it to how our internet started. Like, when our internet started, there was one computer connected to the internet, not much usage of it. And as much more and more computers joined in, the internet just blew up, right? So the data democratization also is a part of this. So as soon as you start a data platform, I think you need to be very clear on people tend to draw great data lakes, etc. Right? So going back to Sunil Matthew's point, what we had to do for data democratization is we did not want IT function uh, to be, like Sunil mentioned, right? A lot of requests come in from executives, like they want to see this kind of data interplayed with that. So what happens is, and a typical example, if it comes in from a chief supply chain officer or a CEO, then half the organization is running behind to collect data and do it, right? It's very disruptive to the IT function. So as we started building the data platform, what we had in mind was to democratize data. So
Mhm.
and ability for a business to build their own reports, right? Like Power BI, for example. But for that, what you need to do is organize your data in a fashion that is easily discoverable, and ability to kind of all aggregate them and look at stuff. So one classic example I will tell you on how we are doing it is, as we started drawing up our data platform vision about a couple of years ago. All of them talk about huge data lakes, etc., right, where you aggregate data, etc. So while we have a lot of data lakes, we were also very cognizant of the fact that, it's very similar to, coming from an engineering background, that we do microservices, right? And then there's an interplay between them. So a very similar strategy we did was to have a data mesh strategy where data can be at many places, but ability to pull them out on the fly and ability to aggregate that is critical, right? You will not be able to 100% aggregate all the data into data lakes. And for that one of the things that we did is, there are multiple things. We had data lakes, and then for data to be discoverable, a lot of things like data mesh and data vaults, right? It's a concept, data vault, that we have implemented on Snowflake, for example. Now Snowflake is a data mart on the cloud, very similar to Azure Synapse or Microsoft, no, or Google BigQuery, right? So in the last 2 or 3 years, technology has just exploded to give the power. That's why I'm a big proponent of what cloud brings in to the data space. So to democratize data, what we have done is followed a path of, Snowflake or BigQuery, using the concept of a data vault. And then on top of it is a Power BI, where now the business users can seamlessly pull in and make their own Power BI dashboards, for example. Now this frees up our bandwidth, right? We want to do a lot of engineering work. We don't want to be serving the requests of executives. So this is a long-term strategy that we have put in place, and this is how it's helping out the company, right? Both from, we use the data marts both for AI/ML and also for Power BI to draw insights and democratizing data.
All right. Amlesh, I want to come to you because, Rohit has spoken about how AI ML is being used for very specific customized offerings. So, as a service provider in today's age, the customer wants, just advertising is not good enough. It has to be personalized, and it has to be on a one-on-one basis. So, can you give us examples of personalization because you have, use AI/ML in your BI functions?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and that's very relevant to travel industry where people usually come to go for travel, and that is very much happy moment for them, and they actually want to have a very personalized offer for them, personalized products and for them. So for example, if you have booked a hotel for 5 star, probably you will not like to go for like 3 star hotels on top of the hotel listing page, and then you just do filters and find out your hotel. You will probably like to get the top hotel which is more relevant to you. So for that we are using ML here, and that is multi-arm bandwidth. So we are using various signals for that, various features for that. And on top of that, we are also customizing users' homepage. So if user comes to our homepage, basis on user's previous activity and the persona user belongs to, we provide the recommended product to user, and also we do the sequencing of recommended product basis on those features which users profile or their past activity does. The major challenge in this comes when it comes to real-time personalization, because real-time personalization is like doing like tons of data, massaging tons of data on every request, and that is going to increase the latency of user, which is nowhere acceptable these days, because users are very like used to of
Funding.
having faster services of app and website. So what we have done, not only on the back end, we have partnered with the front end also. because in the data pipeline, when data comes from the source to the uh, data lake or the aggregator layer, that time we cannot reduce on the real time basis. So to do that, what we have partnered with client, that client sends the recent activities of users, and basis on the current state of user, whatever we have as a cooked data, we also massage the current recent activities of users which is coming from the client side, and then it comes like a real-time experience for user. So if you have searched for a flight from Delhi to Mumbai, and then you have booked for Delhi to Mumbai flight, then once you will come to home page, we will show you that do you want to get a return flight from Mumbai to Delhi, or do you
Mhm.
want to have a hotel in Delhi, in Mumbai. So that kind of personalization we have used through machine learning, and we have achieved through machine learning. And as I think any company would have started like 6 7 years back, we also started with a rule based engine where we have like data and then we have a rule on those data. But once that data comes like terms and your services also get complex, then you cannot do it with rules. Then we need to use machine learning and AI on that.
Right. I want to come to you, Sunil, and the next question is that is there a threshold for companies to start, using AI ML for BI? I mean, should startups themselves start? What is the journey like from a startup to a full scale, large size e-commerce player? Is there a threshold for using some of these technologies?
Um, the companies really need to understand that the at the beginning of the business, it is more of a BI than AI. So
Mhm.
the organization need to understand they need to invest more on BI, have the right data, have the right targets, their KPIs available, they're able to track, they're able to have the right visualizations across operations, and initially that is more important than the prediction itself. So now when the journey starts to happen, you have, let's say, sufficient amount of orders, all of that is happening, then it gets to the prediction part, which is more predictive analytics. Now, when I say, when you look for a threshold, there is no such threshold. You can invest on it based on your ability or your manpower, etc. But everybody should realize that in today's day world, the 70% of the traffic or business management use cases are common across the industry, which means that it's an edge for a small scale business to move faster and focus on business than building the in-house capabilities by using the already available cloud based, whether it's open source or it's cloud-based capabilities in Google Analytics, Power BI, or some of the even AI-based infrastructure. Since those are common, it's easier to take them and move forward. And once you get into that position, only then start to have that. So now talking completely in terms of engineering, the most important part is from the beginning, it needs to be a decoupled architecture. If you don't do that, your ability to expand across the systems will not work. The other important point to look at is since we are all, most of the businesses are now internet based. In a B2C internet based company, data can explode much, much faster than you can anticipate, which makes it more easier to move in cloud, where you don't have to worry when the traffic is exploding about the expansion of your services, but only about your business. So focus more on business. That's the key thing that we need to achieve. If you're a technology based company, it may be an important aspect to actually invest on the big data from the beginning.
Mhm.
But most of the times, since as Dinesh, Sunil, Rohit, everybody talked about that the data massaging and the data being crystal clear is very important for any AI capabilities. First, need to have the basic versions of BI running, and you are relying on that is extremely important. Uh, my my 2 cents would be that valuing every single data point, putting them in a single data lake may not work out, and it may be a defocused effort, and cost as well as the time to market will be too high. So focusing on ROI based use case with the data sources works better.
All
So
right.
yeah, just one last
Mr.
thing.
Matthews, yeah, please go ahead. Please
Yeah.
go ahead, Sunil.
One last thing that I was talking about was the front face, though looks like visualization. The inclusion of storage type columnar for data insights versus the transactional databases is very much warranted. Data compression and the data workloads. The companies like Informatica, as Dinesh mentioned, are also helping out for ETLs. So that is also one part to be focused about.
Right. Mr. Matthews, I want to come to you now. Hearing what Sunil was saying, could you weigh in on the journey from a small company or a startup and how to switch strategies when scaling up?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think I will distill out what Sunil just mentioned, right, and say that there are a few basic ingredients. So one is being able to trust the data itself, right? So the consumers of the data need to get real comfortable, and they would need to say that, okay, what the model is giving me is probably even superior to my experience in this field, right? So when you start, as a startup, I guess it will boil down to identifying the use cases, identifying the people who are going to use these data, and then tailoring your response according to that, right? So if you look at a startup, right, there is invariably a cognitive threshold to your earlier question to Sunil, right? Is, in the physical world, for example, knowing your nearest neighbor is a lot more easier than trying to use an algorithm to figure that out and come up with clusters or data associations, right? So my submission is that we start small, we define a use case, we identify the users, let the users interact with the data through BI solutions or through various mechanisms, and as the confidence grows, then you start scaling up. Right now, even for scaling up, I think Dinesh mentioned about the off-the-shelf solutions that are available. Right now, if you, for example, are an e-commerce company, you're trying to spin up a chatbot, to service your customers. There are services like, just to give you an example, Microsoft Lewis, or there could be other open source algorithms that can be consumed readily to enable the companies to spin some of these up, right? So that's the way I would look at that journey or the transformation. And then once the user base increases, once the ROI increases, that is when you kind of look at building your capability more and make it much more mature, right?
All right. Rohit, could you give us more examples of other areas where you have used AI ML for personalization or for one-on-one communication, or any bouquet of services that you have thought that it was really delightful for customers because you had that service with you, the AI ML backend.
Yes, yes. So, means in Ghana, we have used AI and ML for like solving the search, okay, and the recommendations, the personalization, and like the home page, what the content should be provided to the users, okay, so that at the first moment they can get a lot of engagement. The other one thing is like the hotshot. Ghana hotshot is a feature, okay. So there we have also solved the contents personalization for the users, like the user are following some influencers, okay, so for that means how they can get more and more contents from that influencers whom they are following, right? And also the views should be distributed among their influencers whom they are following, to not just a particular influencer should get more visibility or something, okay. So those kind of stuffs we have solved through AI and ML. Also like the songs which are just uh, standing in the index or in our databases, they are not getting exposed, right? Exposure. So those contents should be exposed or discovered. So those kind of things we have also solved using this AI and ML. Okay. Like
All
one
right.
example I can give you for the autocomplete on the search. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what should be the next word prediction or those kind of stuffs can be done on the search so that the user can get more good suggestions, better suggestions. So those kind of examples are there which we have solved using AI and ML.
Right. Amlesh, so Rohit has told us how perhaps some amount of social listening is also helping to give customers a very personalized experience. If they follow an influencer, they'll get some, song suggestion related to the influencer. So do you also, involve some of the social media inputs to, you know, personalize and, customize your offerings to customers?
Yes, so we used to check that from where user is coming, so and what is the user has done past. So all those activities and the source of the user is very important to define the persona of the user and the golden profile of the user. And basis on that profile, there are lots of massaging and lots of data processing happening, which provides you the personalized recommendation. So there are, and also there are certain things like AB, where we do mostly do AB on various features that when we don't know that which feature will work, so we have A and B version, or probably A, B, and C version. So in AB also we used to do ML to decide that which version of the experiment we should increase further or decrease further. So basis on that data, so those kind of things also helps when you apply your machine learning basis on the data. But as every panelist said here, data is critical and data is king in these days. Without data and without having the clean data, we can't do much. And for that we have done a very different initiative, and we have added like every member in all the teams as a data scientist, and we have trained them on data science. And then, because we can't have that, if we have like thousands of engineers, we can't have 500 data scientists. So and so we have to train engineers also to understand how data science works and why it is important to channelize the right data and clean data.
Right. So you got to get more with what you have, whether it's the solution you use or the people you use. Thank you.